Hello and welcome to another episode of interviews in The Power in Your Story. I'm Marianne, your confident communication expert, helping you speak your truth through the power of story. And this week, I'm thrilled and excited to be introducing you to Kate Kunkel, brain health mentor who teaches midlife men and women to protect their brains from dementia while improving their memory and mental health. How awesome is that? You get a win-win both sides. So that's quite intriguing. But on top of that, she brings 20 years of sound therapy, vegan nutrition, mindfulness teaching, as enhanced as well by research and coaching in brain regeneration to help clients take control of their health and their future. She also dispels the myths that prevent people from making the change that are necessary, and guides them to a brain healthy lifestyle. Kate, welcome. It's an honor to have you here.
I'm so excited. I've enjoyed watching your interview, so I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Marianne.
All right, there's this me grinning. I'm very happy now. Guys, I'm absolutely thrilled because we've started to get a little bit acquainted with on a pre-chat, but really you're very much exploring this through the lens. At the same time, we're exploring Kate's story, and already you can see from her introduction, there's a lot of questions. And in fact, one thing that springs to mind now, before we go and deep dive and go back into your story, is the brain regeneration. I mean, people talk, there used to be, which I think was a myth, that I used to be frightened as a child. You used to think that if you lost a brain cell, that was it.
Oh, yeah.
And so every time I bumped my head, I used to worry. And then years later, I found out actually the brain can regenerate and there is plasticity, and it's not just in children. So tell us a little bit about brain regeneration.
Sure. So yes, you're absolutely right. For many years, they believed that once a brain cell was gone, that was it. You lost it. And that was the explanation for why people would lose their memory or as they got older, or they wouldn't be able to do things as well as they did before, or string sentences together. But that is absolutely not the case. Our brains are plastic and we have the ability to generate new neurons. That's absolutely proven now. The problem with many people is that they don't do the things that we need to do to help that happen. So if you're eating a fast food diet, you're not exercising, you're not spending quality time with people, and you're not continually learning, you're not giving your brain the nutrition it needs, mental, physical, and emotional nutrition that it needs to make that happen. It's just like our bodies. If we don't look after our bodies, they're not going to be well. The cells are going to slough off. They're going to, you're not going to be able to regenerate. If you drink a lot, your liver cells are going to degenerate. If you don't practice learning new things, if you don't eat well, then your brain cells are going to die off and you're not going to have as much chance of regenerating. The great thing is, even if you have had some loss, whether it's from a traumatic brain injury, from toxins, from a poor diet, we can still take control. That's the wonderful thing. We can still make this happen.
That is wonderful news, isn't it? So it's wonderful news, but basically for all of us, we can improve what we've got. And I can't remember her name. There was a professor from Oxford or Cambridge who used to talk a lot about this, about the older brain can still keep. It's one of the few things, one of the few parts of your body that you can still keep quite young if you work it. And that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You have to keep working it. And that includes physical exercise is absolutely essential, absolutely essential. And of course, good nutrition, but also to exercise our mental health, like mental health and our mental acuity. So learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, learning to ballroom dance, all of those things help us improve our brains.
That sounds fun. So we've got lots of options and we've got lots of choices. That's so exciting. And So if we take a deep dive, as a child, did you know what you wanted to do?
I knew when I was a very little girl, before I was 10, I wanted to be a nurse. I remember we all lived in the country, and one time my grandfather was walking along the road from one field to the next, and he came upon a paper bag, and in that paper bag was a nurse's hat. Obviously, it had just come from the cleaners. It was fully starched. There was a little pin on it, and he knew I wanted to be a nurse. He gave me that hat. Well, it was the biggest treasure anybody ever gave me. I wanted to be a nurse so much. I walked around, I was like 4 or 5, and I remember walking around with this big hat on my head.
Oh, that's lovely.
And then that same grandfather was, when I was 10, he died of cancer, colon cancer. He actually died of pneumonia, but it was because of colon cancer that he got sick.
Yeah.
And because back then in 1967, kids weren't allowed in the hospitals, so my mom had to sneak us in to say goodbye. And I remember Grandpa laying there. He was a jokester. Grandpa was a jokester. He loved to poof, and he'd give us whisker rubs, which we hated. But even as we walked in on his deathbed, he went poof, and he looked me right in the eyes. And he said, "Don't be a nurse. I know you want to be a nurse, but don't be a nurse. You'll have to clean up after old men like me."
Oh.
So, as a 10-year-old, that really sticks. And I loved him so much.
Yes.
So I took that to heart. And then I thought, well, how can I help people in another way? Because that was always I had to do it somehow.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to be a child psychologist, even though I didn't know what the heck a child psychologist was.
But it sounded good.
It sounded good. And, there was a lot of mental health issues in one of the branches of the family. And I knew that a psychologist was somebody who could help. And I just figured since I was a kid, I'd be a child psychologist. You don't know what you're thinking back then. But anyway, that kind of went by the wayside. And then I decided I wanted to be a constitutional lawyer. That was my goal, because I felt that there were many people that were not protected. And this is in Canada. We had the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms had just been passed when I was a kid. Okay. And I wanted to be a part of that, to protect the people who were not able to protect themselves.
Yeah. So
that was then. And then I carried that through until I was in my mid-20s. I became a paralegal, and then I studied, because we didn't have a lot of money. So I studied, I got my bachelor's degree at night, and then I started law school. And that was sort of the end of the legal world, because I realized once I got to law school that it wasn't about helping people. It was about making money. And I dropped out, much to the chagrin of my poor father, who was laying all his cards on me being a lawyer. But I just couldn't do it, Marianne. I just couldn't do it. I realized that was not where my helping came from.
No, and I guess, you hear of a few lawyers that go and stand up for rights, but they still have to be paid by somebody, don't they? And yeah, I guess if you start as a lawyer, you have to go through a certain system, and that didn't appeal to you.
No, and I because by the time I got into law school, I was older than all of my contemporaries in the class, right? Because I'd had to work my way through my bachelor's degree at night, because I didn't want to end up in debt for the rest of my life. Nice. So I did it part-time. And I had saved enough to get all the way through law school. I was going to be able to do it. But I got there, and I'll never forget, I'm in this big lecture hall. It was the first introduction to civil law. And I'm in this lecture hall, and there are like hundreds of us. And some of them, actually, I swear, I'd look at their eyes, and all I could see were dollar signs in the pupils. They were there to make lots of money.
Like Scrooge Duck, isn't it, in Donald Duck?
Exactly. So I thought, no, if I spend my life doing this, I will be miserable. This is not my world. So I left. I walked out of that lecture hall. I looked around. I walked out of that room and went to the registrar's office and said, "Not going to work. We got to fix this."
Oh, so how many years in were you?
Just one. I was only like 6 months in, 4 months in, 4 months in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you,
And I mean, I had been working with lawyers at this point for almost 10 years.
as a paralegal, yes.
So I knew the business.
You got the insight of what it was like afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's quite an important insight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened with the registrar? Did you switch to something else?
No, what I did is I got that year's tuition, not all of it, but I got, I think 50% back. And then I went home to I was engaged at the time, and I went home to my fiance, and he says, "What are you doing home?" So I told him, and you know what his words were? He said, "Thank God." And I said, "What do you mean, thank God?" He said, "I didn't want you to be a lawyer, but I wasn't going to say anything."
Wow. Did he say why?
Yeah, he said because his experience with lawyers was not particularly good, and he felt that I had more in me, because he was a creative. He was a radio announcer, and he was very creative, a musician. And I was also a musician. Of course, I played piano. I was a graduate of the Royal Conservatory of Music. So I had lots of music background.
Oh.
But he said to me, "Okay, now what do you want to do when you grow up?" Here I'm almost 30. He said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a writer. That's where my heart is. I feel I can do the most good by being a writer." So at that time, obviously there's no internet, there's nothing like we have now. So he found an ad somewhere for a correspondence course in England. It came from England. And I started this correspondence course, and I started writing, and I sold my first article. My first article was about the dangers of estrogen replacement or
hormone
birth control pills or birth control pills. It was about the dangers of birth control pills, because I had almost died with a blood clot from birth control pills when I was younger.
Really?
So that was my first real interest. The article that I thought could do the most good for the most people. So that's what I did first. It was such a roundabout way of.
Have I lost your sound? Were you talking? Are you back?
I'm back. I should be back.
You're back. You're back.
That's so strange.
Suspense. Don't stop. There's so many. We've got to age 30, and you've had so many events, including nearly dying from a blood clot, from birth control pill, and that inspired you to actually sell your first article. So, a traumatic event, but you still it stayed with you for a long time. Did that have any other influence, that experience nearly?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, it made me completely distrust allopathic medicine. I thought, I can't. And then my mother, she had cancer 4 times before she died. And the 3rd and 4th time were strictly not, she was not paid attention to. The doctors did not pay attention to her concerns. And by the time they finally did pay attention, it was way far advanced.
Sure.
And ultimately, she died of cancer with dementia. And all those years of watching her being ignored, my sister being ignored, it's very common, it's unfortunately, maybe it's getting better now, but women are not treated properly in the allopathic medical world.
Really?
I've seen it too many times. And my current husband, his daughter, she had lymphoma, and she was ignored for basically 2 years. She had terrible chest pains, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is what it was. And she had terrible chest pain. She couldn't breathe. She was vomiting. She went, and they said it's stress. They sent her home saying it was stress. So by the time they finally figured it out, when they took her seriously because she's coughing up blood, oh, well, okay, I guess there's really something wrong. But I've seen it happen too many times, and I've heard many stories of this. So my experience back when I was younger was minuscule compared to what happens to many people. So I kind of got turned off the allopathic medical model then. And the older I get and the more I learn, the more I'm turned off by it, I have to say.
Going to around age 30, and your husband at the time says, what do you want to be? And you said a writer, and then you saw this article. Do you continue to write, or is that?
Yeah, so he was offered a job in California. We were in Canada at the time. He was offered a job in California, so we schlepped across the country, and we settled in Los Angeles because that's where the job was. And I was really fortunate because I got to work with many incredible artistic people while I was there. And I literally fell into an opportunity to do some ghostwriting for some screenplays. So I did that, and I got to work with some really powerful people, and some of them I can't mention their names because their name is on the screenplay. But anyway, I got to do a lot of really cool stuff and expanded my horizon as to what writing could be.
So it's down in California.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and I did that for several years, and then I kind of got burnt out on Hollywood. Honestly, it's a very tough place, and my musical heart was aching. I wasn't doing enough music, so eventually I started playing the harp rather than piano, and ended up in Las Vegas, of all things.
to play the harp.
Yeah, we were there almost 20 years. Yeah.
Harp is such a beautiful, ethereal instrument. So what led you to change to harp as opposed to piano?
A dream. Honestly, a dream. Like a go to sleep at night dream. I was very stressed from my job, from my work. And not so much the work itself, but dealing with the people, because there's a lot of ego. And I really had a hard time with the ego. And one night I was driving home.
This is in Hollywood.
Yeah, in California. Yeah. And I was driving home from another endless meeting. And I lived, actually at the time I was living in Rancho Mirage, California. And I was crossing this big wash. They're very deep washes, like a gully, I guess some people would call them. And as I was approaching the wash, it was a millisecond. Marianne, I thought it would be so much easier to just drive off than continue on the bridge.
Oh my goodness.
It was just a millisecond.
This is when you were driving, not in your dream.
I was driving.
Wow.
So I that was a little bit of a shocker for me.
Yeah.
So, to get that feeling. So I continued to cross the bridge. I went to our house. The dog's asleep. The cat's asleep. My husband's asleep. Nobody gives a heck that I'm like struggling like this. So I laid down in bed and I cried myself. I was crying myself to sleep. And I just put it out there because I'm not a praying person. I put it out there. If there's anybody out there, please help me find my way, because I know this isn't it. I know this is not my way. So I finally cried myself to sleep. And in that night, after that prayer, I was given a dream where I was playing a harp. I have no idea what I was playing. It was a big fancy harp. I had never seen a harp in my life before. I'd never touched one, never had any interest in one. I was playing this harp, and Marianne, it was like my heart was full. To this day, when I remember that dream, I get choked up a little bit because it was so powerful. Wow. So that morning when I woke up, I mean, the dream has stayed with me for 30 years. So when I got up, and my husband got up, and we were having coffee, and I said, I have to get a harp.
As one does.
What else are you going to say over coffee in the morning?
That's it. Yeah. Dogs, cat need a harp.
So he's like, and I have to say, this is the same husband who asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. So he's a very supportive man. We're still friends, but it just didn't work out to be married anymore. But he said, okay, we'll get you a harp.
Wow.
And so we started looking. I had no idea how expensive fancy harps like that were. I mean, they're atrociously expensive. But he had a friend who had a music store, and they were going to a music conference, not a conference, but where they go and sell things. Like they get to see all the wholesalers' products.
Oh, right.
So he took my husband with him, this friend, and they found a little harp for me. It was a little folk harp, and ordered it. And a couple of weeks later, I got this little harp. It was a 26 string, dusty strings, mahogany. I'll never forget it. I kind of wish I would have held on to it, but I needed a bigger harp for when I started playing professionally. But anyway, I got that in July. And then 1 year later, we quit everything in California, locked the door on my office, locked the door on his office, piled everything, including the dogs and the cats, in a van, and drove to Las Vegas on a wing and a prayer.
Wow.
And we drove into Las Vegas. If anybody knows that, come in on the South Las Vegas Boulevard, and you drive by a hotel called the Excalibur. The Excalibur is a medieval themed hotel. And the music I was playing was medieval and Renaissance music on the harp, because that's what was done. That's what people played on those instruments, that's when they started. So we get across the bridge and we looked at each other and we said, we're going to play there someday, because he played guitar. So we were going to play together.
Nice.
We'd already been practicing together. We called ourselves Crosswind. 1 year from the day that we crossed in front of the Excalibur, we started a 7-year gig there.
Wow.
So that's where we were supposed to be. Because even though it's a casino hotel, we weren't on the casino floor, we were upstairs. At the time, they had, the second floor was just restaurants and entertainment. They had the medieval village, they called it. And we were called strolling entertainers. Kind of hard to do with a harp, but we figured a way around it. But we started the 7-year gig there then. So that was, and while I was there, that's when I learned about the healing power of the harp and music. That's where I really hit my stride with the healing work, because I was working with, I did a lot of reading then. I learned about a harpist who had not cured himself, but reversed the symptoms of Parkinson's disease by playing the harp. And that got me in the whole healing music world.
Wow. Wow. So is that where sound therapy comes in?
Yes. That's where the sound therapy started. There was a gentleman that worked at the hotel with us. His wife had MS, and she was already in a wheelchair, and she could no longer even type or anything.
Yes.
So I learned about this fellow who'd reversed the symptoms of Parkinson's. So we got his wife a little harp, and we were working with her. Unfortunately, his contract only lasted 6 months, so I don't know what happened. But after about a month of me working with her, and it was just an experiment, right? Because I needed to learn what this was.
Yeah.
And she was able to write her name again, which was a big deal. She was still in the wheelchair, but at least she could use her hands more. It was sort of reversing a little bit of that kind of atrophy, I guess you would call it. So anyway, that got me started. And that's where, then I started learning about vibroacoustic therapy and how the harp resonates the body, and that just got me on that whole path. So
wow. If you're playing it, because I guess you're actually, through your fingers, you're actually getting the bone vibration actually to different parts of your body as well as your ear.
Yeah. And it can, but it's not, you don't have to just play, you don't have to play it,
just listening.
Well, and being in the room with it, because the vibration of the harp. Yeah.
Beautiful. So did your sound therapy worked with the harp in the end?
Yeah, and also vibroacoustic therapy, which is a modality that I teach. I actually have a certification course where I teach other therapists to do it. What we do is we send sound waves, specific frequencies, because our bodies need specific frequencies for different things.
Yes.
It goes into a lounge or a chair or something that has transducers in it. So transducers actually send the sound into the chair or whatever you're laying on, and then it goes into your body. So those sound waves, it's not so much the hearing, it's the actual frequency that affects the cells of your body. It's very powerful.
It's in the
bones, tissue, organs, everywhere.
Yes, because even when we speak, we get some that's actually But we are vibrations, aren't we? And
We
guys,
are 100%.
when we speak, what you say matters, because that's vibrations. It really, really is very, very important.
100%.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's where the sound therapy came in. And so you had a really supportive husband who's now you're still friends with, but it didn't work out. You now have moved for some time from Canada to the United States. And I know that you happen to be in Ecuador now. So just take us through the tour of moving on, how you managed to move there and why.
So after my former husband and I divorced, we were still in California at the time. I moved back to Canada to be close to my family because by this time my mom was really sick. And I was also diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Oddly enough, some harpist who does healing work, and I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But I think because for the last several years that Richard and I were together, we hosted and produced a television program. And we there's a lot of pressure and stress in that modality. And I also wasn't playing my harp as much. You know, I wasn't performing anymore on the harp, occasionally, but not too much. So I think that the loss of my vibration and the increase in stress were contributors, and my diet became terrible while I was on television because it was so much stress and so many meetings and stuff like that. I went back to that world again. What was I thinking?
You went, thinking of it. So this is the world of Hollywood that you'd left.
Yeah. I was back in television for 9 years. We were doing, for several years, we did music and television program. And then we backed off the music and focused on the television program because it was so timely. There were so many things going on in the world that we were trying to address. So we did that. Again, it's my teacher coming out. It was the part of me that wanted to fix things. And Out There TV was in 24 million households around the world. But yeah, today's events kind of confirmed that it was mostly an exercise in futility because people weren't ready to understand, to listen. Doesn't matter. I ended up with a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
And it was at the same time that I was going home to see my mom, who was in early stages of dementia. And that's when I really got into understanding the mechanism of disease. Because the mechanism that made her diseases happen, cancer and dementia, is the same mechanism that made my disease happen. So I had to figure out how to fix me. And I was too late to help mom. Really, she was so far advanced by the time I figured this out. It was really too late to help her, except to make her enjoy what time she had left.
So what things did you start, what sort of pennies started to drop as you were suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and seeing your mum in already the throes of dementia? What started to pull together that made sense for you to heal yourself?
The nutrition, firstly, because rheumatoid arthritis is an inflammatory disease, right? So I had to go in, and thank God for the internet, you know, because then I was able to research what is this? Why is this happening? And you know, 12 years ago, there wasn't quite as much information on it as there is now, but I understood that the gut health and what I was eating had such a big impact on it. So I cut out all the wheat, all of the things, the sugar. I haven't had a sweet thing in 12 years, and I don't miss it one little bit. And I tell people you can get over this sugar addiction.
Is that sugar or anything, even dates, even honey, and nothing?
No, processed. I do not eat honey because it's from animals, but also anything that messes with the insulin levels, with your insulin production. So I do eat a couple of dates, sometimes once a week. You know, bananas are my main source of natural sugars, but I live here in Ecuador. Fruits are everywhere. You know, bananas are, you can buy 25 bananas for $1. So, you know, yeah, I came home with a haul of 20 bananas, 3 big avocados, and all this other stuff. And it would cost me a grand total of $12. Like, you can't even believe what I got for $12 when I went to the Mercado. Yeah, on Saturday I love going there. And because now they're asking for these crazy segregation passes at the supermarkets, I won't go. So I go to the mercados with the local people, and I love it. I'm getting, my Spanish is getting better, you know.
Very good. You see, she's actually doing her own medicine, learning the language.
Yes.
Well done, you. Well done. And you're
Yeah.
connecting with the people that grow it, which is so much more interesting. And then you find out whether it's organic or not organic, because they tell you, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. Now, a lot of stuff here is not organic. However, if I go to the right stalls in the mercado, there's an area where there's, see, they don't have organic certification. I mean, it's so expensive and it's crazy, right? So I go to places where I know the farmers, and I've got my favorites to buy the avocados from, and my favorites to buy the cauliflower and the broccoli from. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, exciting. Yeah, wow, wow. So you realized it was a lot to do with nutrition, hence you were now a vegan nutritionist, and
Yep.
And with your mother, though it was too late, also using other things to keep the brain, all the things you mentioned earlier on about exercising our brains, and that started to did you heal yourself then from rheumatoid arthritis?
I haven't had symptoms in 10 years. It took me 2 years to really dump the nonsense. And I would never say it's my rheumatoid arthritis. When people put the word my in front of cancer or my thyroid problem, it's taking ownership of that. And I always refused to take ownership of it. It was that thing that was invading my body, and that thing had to go. So gone it is. And I haven't had, my hands are perfect. You know, I don't have any twisting or anything. It was started with my feet and knees. That's why I went for a diagnosis, because my feet and knees were in such a mess. And the ankles are not back to normal, but they don't hurt anymore. So
that's wonderful news. That's wonderful news. And so what led you to go to Ecuador? Different lifestyle?
Yeah, so I met my husband and my current husband, Lynn, who is my biggest fan. He's so helpful and wonderful. And he was getting ready to retire. So he was so over the cold. And I'd been back in Canada for about 4 years, and I was over the cold. Like, I don't want to be cold anymore. And we talked about where we could go. And I had been offered a job here in Quito when I left my TV show and my marriage dissolved. I was offered a job for expats hosting a television program in Quito, but I turned it down, obviously. But when Richard or Lynn was looking for someplace, you know, we were talking about someplace inexpensive to retire to, because we couldn't afford Miami or, you know, the coast of California. So we were talking about, and I said, well, I heard that Ecuador is a really nice place. Shall we go and explore? So we did. We explored, and we rented a car from Quito, and we drove all around the country. And we ended up here in Punta Carnero, which is on the Salinas Peninsula. We're as far west as you can be in Ecuador. And we stayed at a little bed and breakfast owned by some Americans around the corner. And we were saying to them, we really like it here. We're going to have to come back and see if we can find a place where we could live. So they said, well, there's this place around the corner for sale. You know, maybe you could go talk to the people who have it. So we did. And we own this place now. It's called Casas Pacificos. When we first came here, it's 5 houses. So we have our home, and then there are 4 rental houses. So we own like a little osteria, a retreat center is what we were. Once I saw it, and I got the vision to have a retreat center. And the rest of it was dirt. It's half an acre of dirt, except for these houses. But anyway, we thought about it, and a year and a half later, we owned it.
Wow, that's wonderful. So you've stayed. This is your home now. You're not planning to move.
Yeah, no, this is. I honestly, Marianne, I can't think of any place in the world I'd rather be. I've traveled quite a bit, and I would never want to be anywhere else but here. We have I'm in my music house right now as we speak. It has my harps, it has a piano, it has guitars, it has vibroacoustics. That's my own building. Yes. And then we have our home, which is not big, but it's beautiful. I've got my lovely kitchen. I love my kitchen. Oh. And we have a pool. I swim every day because that's really, really good for any kind of inflammatory disease. I walk the beach.
Yes.
So I can't imagine anywhere else to be in the world, honestly.
Beautiful. And you get the sunshine most of the year? You don't get winter?
No winter. We're 400 kilometers south of the equator, right on the coast.
Oh, wow.
So in our winter, which is like July to December, winter, it's cloudy a lot. Yeah. But that's okay because by then we're kind of tired of the sun. So it's a nice break. And then, so now it's sunny again. Now we've got the heat again. And in March, it will be very hot, but that's okay. I've got the pool.
You do. And you've got the beach. You've got the beach, which is wonderful, wonderful. So do you feel now, do you feel that you found your life path, your life purpose?
Yeah, I do. Because see, right from the time, like when I was a little girl, it had to do with healing. It had to do with helping people. And even though it's kind of a roundabout way to get here, now I have my retreat center. We do brain health retreats here. We do healing music retreats. We had somebody bring down a group of meditators, a meditation retreat. So we have my place of peace and healing, which was one of my dreams. So I have that. Yes. And I can online now, I can help so many people, with the books and with the courses and the programs. I'm just working with another lady right now to put a program together to help people with rheumatoid arthritis, because I haven't really focused on that as much before, but I think it's a message that I need to expand my work to. Yes,
we need to share your story on that. That's wonderful. Oh, so do you feel that you had all those years? I mean, there was a bit of training as a lawyer, certainly working as a paralegal, and the years working in Hollywood, script writing or ghost script writing, and some working on television. So do you feel that some of that has fed in and been beneficial for the work you do now?
Absolutely. I can tell you right now that the work I did as a paralegal was so research heavy. When this condition hit me and my researcher came out in full force. And so I believe that's why I was able to develop this protocol and to develop the best way that I could think of to help people protect their brains. It's not unique. This is not rocket science, but a lot of people don't take the time to pay attention to it, right? Yes. Eat healthy, exercise, get fresh air. I mean, it's not rocket science. But what I did is I went and found the reasons for this. I found the research. My first book is called Don't Let the Memories Fade. There are 324 references in it, citations. Yeah. So if you want to go and see why this is what I know to be helpful, if you want to protect your brain, those are the reasons. That's research. It's from the National Institutes of Health. It's from the British Medical Journal. It's from all around the world. Yes. So that helped. Yeah. The television experience, the Hollywood experience, it helps me for things like this. I mean, 9 years on TV, I'm very comfortable in front of a camera, and that helps because when you're working with people, it helps to give them that personal feeling without being nervous,
That's right. So. Being confident speaking, guys, it makes a difference. It's not just about you, it's to help your audience as well. And
exactly.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. I mean, I really do feel there's such an amazing story. There's so many amazing snippets. I feel that I could just keep deep diving into just little parts of it, and we could find so many more nuggets to fascinate our audience. But it's been amazing so far. And if you want to find out more about Kate's work as well, I'm going to put some details in the show notes, guys. She has an ebook, 5 Steps to a Better Brain. And you can see, obviously, Kate is very comfortable to talk to, very personable, and we all need a mentor to help us move forward at whatever our objectives are. Also, if you want to find out further, please note, as we discussed earlier, some of our stories are empowering. Some of them serve us and move us forward. Some of them really help us to connect to others and reach out and help our work with them. And some of them are disempowering. We need to either reinterpret or let them go. And if you want to find out more about working with your story, getting more confident in communication, I'll put more details as well in the show notes. In the meantime, Kate, is there anything you want to say, any pearls of wisdom, anything you want to leave us with as a message?
I just bouncing off what you just said about empowering and disempowering stories.
Yeah.
It is so important to remember that holding on to disempowering stories is bad for your brain. Bottom line, it's bad for your brain. If somebody can help you get over that, go through that, come out on the other side, take advantage of it, because we hold on to that stress. It doesn't just bother our brains, it bothers our stomach, it bothers our heart, cancer, so many things. So go to someone like Marianne, somewhere where you can get help to get through those stories. I did it. You can do it. It's just and take power, take strength, and enjoy the empowering stories.
Oh, that's a beautiful message to end with. Kate, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to journey with you on your amazing story that's involved courage, curiosity, and you've taken so many steps, and I'm so glad you've reached the place where you are so happy. I know. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you'll be able to take a lot of takeaways from this. There's so many little nuggets. Thanks for watching, and thank you so much again, Kate.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, guys.